Hi, I'm Boriana.
And I'm Philip.
And you're watching Art Unplugged. In 2014, this painting by Mark Rothko sold privately for $186 million. And this one by Willem de Kooning in 2015 sold for $300 million.
Chances are that if you do not have a special interest in art, you'd only vaguely know who these artists are, or not at all. It's only logical to conclude that artworks that sell for the highest prices are the best ones, right? But for works like these two, many people would say that even a 5-year-old can do better.
And this is how a feeling of resentment starts to grow, often directed toward art and artists, especially contemporary ones. This video is about the art market, and I have invited Philip, who understands economics and money much better than me, to help me clarify what's going on. There is a difference between why we like a certain piece of art and what makes it valuable in the market. We may like an artwork because we enjoy looking at it and it makes us feel and think in certain ways. It also reflects who we are and what we value. While these things might play a part in what defines an artwork's market value, there are other, more influential factors.
One of them is the fame and reputation of the artist. Anything touched by Picasso's hand is valuable. Salvador Dali's wife Gala abused his fame by making him sign fakes and even empty sheets of paper and selling them. A work of art may rise from obscurity to stardom only by being attributed to a famous artist. This is The Massacre of the Innocents, a fine painting which remained largely unnoticed. When it was identified as a Rubens, however, the value of the painting skyrocketed overnight, although nothing had changed in the painting itself.
Another factor is historical significance. There are artworks that might not look like much, but they're part of a new movement that changed the course of art history, or mark a new period in an artist's career, or are associated with historical events of the time. This painting by Renoir, one of the Impressionists, is priced at 200,000 euros. As a painting, it's mediocre at best. While this painting, painted in the Impressionist manner by the Russian artist Olga Kuzmina in 2018, can be bought online for 650 euros only, shipping included. Artistically, it's much better than the Renoir, and it's even bigger in size.
Another factor that has nothing to do with what the artwork looks like is provenance. That is, who has owned it in the past. For example, this painting by Mark Rothko was bought initially for $10,000 by the Rockefeller family. In 2007, it sold for $72.8 million at auction, much higher than the normal prices for this artist at the time, just because of the Rockefeller name, and it's known as the Rockefeller Rothko. Provenance is so important that many art dealers will not sell certain artworks to just anyone ready to pay the price. Finally, during an auction, prices can go through the roof just because two people with money are obsessed with the idea of winning.
As valuable objects, artworks have always been a form of investment for their owners. But from the 1960s, the idea of investing in art, like in any other commodity, took hold. The phenomenon of the multi-billion-dollar art market of today started taking shape. After the opening of Russia and China, new oligarchs and rich businessmen entered the game, to be followed by oil sheiks, hedge fund billionaires, and Silicon Valley entrepreneurs.
Today, there are 2,189 billionaires in the world, with a joint net worth of 10.2 trillion US dollars. ArtNet News keeps a list of the top 200 art investors, which is updated each year. These people belong to the super rich, many of them owning as much as $1 billion worth of art each. The total value of art sold at auction each year, according to ArtNet News, is around 14 billion US dollars, and it's estimated that the same value is sold privately. Add in art gallery sales and the growing segment of online sales, and you reach an estimated total average market value of around $64 billion a year, according to Sotheby's. Whichever way you look at it, that is a massive market. Compared to the other commodity markets, the art market is largely opaque and unregulated, which makes it a fertile ground for manipulation.
Where there is big money, an ecosystem forms of interconnected institutions helping each other to make more money. With their help, art has become not just a form of investment, but an investment tool. So, what are the elements of the art market ecosystem?
Collectors and investors. These are wealthy individuals who amass collections of valuable artworks. In some cases, they have very limited interest in the art itself. Some own large enough shares of the work of certain artists to be able to control their prices. In the commodities market, there are laws against such practices, but not in the art market. There is another kind of patron, which we call the contemporary art incubator.
These are rich people who commission less well-known artists to produce work, which they sell for profit. The man who set this trend was the advertising magnate Charles Saatchi. In the mid-90s, he handpicked a group of art school graduates to work for him. With the appropriate PR support, Saatchi created the movement known as Young British Artists, which was arguably the last big thing in art in the last 25 years. Other super-rich investors followed suit, and today the business of grooming superstars for sale is thriving, with everyone looking out for the next big thing.
The artist businessman. By this, we mean people whose artistic work serves the objective of beating the art market at its own game. They're not many, and they're not heroes.
The first one was Andy Warhol, who built himself as a brand and started selling mass-produced artworks of little artistic value for bombastic prices. The most highly rated one is Jeff Koons, whose work Inflatable Rabbit is the most expensive artwork ever sold by a living artist. And the most outrageous is Damien Hirst, who was one of Saatchi's proteges. All three have one thing in common. They are astute businessmen who built themselves as brands first and then set up production facilities staffed by assistants to churn out artwork for sale at hard prices. The business model is fine. The merits of the art often questionable.
You would think that this contradicts one of the fundamental rules of the free market. The higher the supply, the lower the price, right? But here's the catch. In a market manipulated to inflate the prices, the more Warhols that are in circulation, the more opportunities there are for selling them at higher prices, in this way increasing the value of all other Warhols that are out there. So much the better if you're still alive and churning dot paintings or inflatable doggies. That is why in the multi-million-dollar segment, there is a tendency to see the names of the same men again and again.
Women? Forget about it. Presently, the best-selling female artist is jean-michel.
And she sold less than half the value of number 25 on the men's list.
Basically, the role of galleries is to develop and protect the market of the artists they represent. A gallery can make an artist's career, but it can break it too. To meet the needs of their clients, galleries can put pressure on artists to produce more of what sells, and this can kill an artist creatively. There are a handful of big international galleries who dominate the multi-billion-dollar price segment, who have been known to engage in darker practices. A BBC documentary revealed a few years ago how certain galleries bid in auction for their own artists in order to inflate the prices or make sure that works are sold. If you want to find out more about this, I have put a link in the description below. In 2007, Damien Hirst exhibited the most expensive artwork ever created, a human skull encrusted with real diamonds, priced at $100 million, the ultimate trophy for someone obscenely rich. And though I appreciate the irony, which is the only idea behind this work, to me it is overshadowed by the cynicism of Hearst's intention. Months passed and there were no buyers. Then Hearst's gallery announced that the work had been sold for its asking price to a consortium of investors. As it turned out, the artist and his gallery still owned a controlling interest in this artwork.
In the shares market, it's illegal to conceal the failure of a sale, but not in the art market. So all is good.
In 2009, Damien Hirst made an unprecedented move by auctioning many of his works independently, bypassing his own dealers. And what did they do? Swallowed their pride, went and bid like good boys. Why?
Because if Hearst's work remained unsold, the prices of their own stocks of Hearst's would lose their value. In the past, auction houses were places where art dealers bought art cheaply to sell to their clients at a profit. Nowadays, establishments like Sotheby's have turned into art market dynamos, offering private sale opportunities, advisory and financing services. Critics see certain practices in that area as strategies to manipulate the markets in order to maintain high price levels. In 1987, this painting by Van Gogh sold at auction for $53.9 million. The buyer could afford to bid this high because Sotheby's lent him half the price. This caused an uproar, which led to an inquiry into the art market by the New York State Assembly.
It had to do with the sale of the Van Gogh painting, The Irises, in which there was an Australian named Alan Bond who had about $25 million, a Japanese gentleman who had about $50 million, which meant that the painting should have sold for about $26 million. Sotheby's decided to lend Mr. Bond another $26 million, and the net result of that was a dramatic bubble in the cost and prices for French Impressionism.
The picture that is forming is of a monstrous, incestuous family, having a ball shuffling billions in a cozy, unregulated environment.
You may ask, so what? A bunch of super rich people scamming other super rich people. How does it affect all the rest of us?
Well, it affects us in two ways. First, more and more good art bought for investment ends up buried in high security vaults, and we may never see it again. Second, a good deal of the billions shifted by the art market come from taxpayers' money. Yes, here is how.
Very rich collectors often donate artwork to public institutions or set up their own private museums. Looks like philanthropy at first glance, but in many countries, like the US for example, when collectors do this, they get significant tax breaks. The money they save is compensated by the taxpayers. In the US, you can donate the equivalent of up to 30% of your gross income annually. So, if you make $100 million, you can donate 30, reducing your taxable income to 70. If you are taxable at 40% rate, you've saved $12 million. You can then invest that $12 million in another work of art, which in a few years may appreciate to save $15 million. In other words, the taxpayers just helped you earn $3 million. So why not go and buy another piece of art at an inflated price and repeat the process?
You may say that it is good that museums receive valuable art which they make available to the public. But tax deductions fuel the inflation of the prices, which makes it hard for museums to buy art of their choosing. Relying on donations bears the risk of reflecting the tastes or buying habits of their donors. As we saw, price is not necessarily a reflection of artistic merit. If it is any consolation, most of the good art that exists and is being produced today is not part of the big money game.
There is a vibrant, affordable art market where art can grow in value too, without being artificially inflated.
It was difficult to come to a conclusion in this video, and finally we agreed to disagree. Here are our cases. Unlike commodities, when art becomes a financial tool, its cultural and social value is affected negatively. Art for investment is judged by different criteria, and in the long term, this reflects on what kind of art gets made, shown, and sanctified by museums as the cultural heritage of our time. So my case is that when the financial value of art becomes more important than its cultural value, This is a bad thing for culture.
There have always been wealthy and influential patrons in art who would go to great lengths to protect their wealth, even war, so it should be no surprise that today's mega-rich art investors do the same. This does not degrade the art. Similarly, there have always been newly discovered artists, and often their new art was at first denigrated, only to be hailed as genius by subsequent generations. Some of these latest great things fell by the wayside, and history gave them neither fame nor fortune. The same will happen with today's new art. The decision of super-rich investors to pay huge sums for art is based on the advice of art and financial experts. Some will fail, but many will go on to appreciate and be hailed as genius. It is too early to make a judgment on the quality and cultural merits of the work simply because someone is prepared to pay a high price for it.
So, are the astronomical prices of art a good thing or a bad thing for art? Leave us your judgment in the comments below, or we will keep fighting forever. Before we go, I want to ask you a favor. Those of you who are watching us through Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and others, please hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. In future, you can continue to watch through your preferred platform. Also, please leave your likes and comments here on YouTube instead of or in addition to Facebook or other places. This is very important because it will help us get noticed by the algorithm and grow organically. Every like and comment here on YouTube, even one word, will make a difference. Thank you for being our intelligent, inquisitive and supportive audience, and I look forward to your judgment on the art market. See you soon. Bye.